Hello again, YouTube. Lovell is prior enlisted Marine, history buff, and overall somebody who just does a lot of research. And I have not been making a lot of videos recently because I've been attempting to do a lot of DoorDash in order to make sure that I've got something coming in, trying to work through the neuropathy. And I've also had an accident there too, where on the way back from one of my deliveries, I missed a step on one of the apartments nearby, fell face first into the handrail, and also sprained both my ankles. No concussion, but like I said, I sprained both my ankles at the same time. It has severely limited my mobility, and with the neuropathy, has made it very very difficult to get around. So, it's made it so that way I just haven't been in a position to where I've been able to make the YouTube videos, and I'm still more prone to falling, as this scratch on my left arm actually attests to. But I know a lot of you who have kids out there, really, really young ones, and have noticed the formula on the shelf is a little scarce. Well, as bad as that is, there's a shortage that's coming that's going to affect a lot more than just that. There's a diesel fuel shortage coming, and the Biden administration is not backing off, not allowing not only more oil to be produced that would refine into diesel, amongst other things, as and it just seems to be the pattern with this particular administration, is they wait until the shortage becomes crisis levels before they do anything about it. They try to deny the problem, and when it becomes a crisis, then they finally act, and it seems like it's a day late and a dollar short. This particular shortage diesel is going to be much more widespread, much more effect on everybody. And those of you who already know what, or have been, pay attention to things like what mechanically runs a lot of the important stuff in our life, are going, oh dear, if you aren't already familiar with the diesel issue. But it's like those big rigs that you see on the road. Well, those run on diesel. They also run on ones that have cooler trailers, have a variation of diesel called reefer. And the tow trucks, if you happen to need a tow, most of them run on diesel. And it's like the train that I just heard the horn to. It's a diesel electric, so it runs on diesel. So as a result, a lot of our ability to transport freight runs on diesel. And it occurred to me while I was just thinking about that train, is that because if there's a diesel shortage, that train ain't moving, well, it can't transport the coal to the coal-fired plants. And guess what? Your electricity, if you were able to keep it at all, is going to be a lot more expensive. Those of us who happen to have grown up in rural environments, live in them, or have lived in them in the past, we're a little bit better off because we've learned a few skills that'll make it so that way being able to retrieve the food and items that we need, as well as the heating items that we will need, is a little easier because we have the skills necessary. For example, as I was growing up, if I didn't have the neuropathy going on and could actually use my fine motor control skills, hunting, fishing, farming, and the woodman skills necessary in order to actually get firewood, I have all of those things. Plus, I actually have a wood stove in my basement. So, if the neuropathy goes away in time, I'm not going to freeze over winter. I'll be able to keep something resembling life resuming somewhat normalcy. I'll have food, I'll have, it's like I actually know how to distill water if I have to, but it's like I know I need to follow up on one more thing in order to actually make it potable, because when you distill it, you kill all the bacteria in it, and you need some in order for your body to properly process it. So I'd have to figure out what the bacteria is, but I could actually, in theory, make potable water. So, but that's not going to be the case for the inner cities. New York City, for example, how many of them actually know anything about farming at all? And there's virtually nothing to hunt. In New York City, they could fish the Hudson River, but how long would it take for a city the size of New York to fish that river to extinction? I was like, that's a lot of good points. Not only that, but a lot of the fishing boats actually use diesel. Basically, what I'm pointing out is that makes it harder for you to feed yours and your own. And if you happen to like empty shelves, then you're going to like what's coming next, because there will be a lot of empty shelves all over the place. But if you, like me, like our products to be in abundance, well, you're going to be in not so good shape, not so happy. And those of you who've gotten a black eye over Black Friday, well, you ain't seen nothing yet. It's like, it actually leads back to the causes of two major revolutions, one that happened in the late 18th century and into the early 19th century, the French Revolution. People were having trouble feeding themselves. And Marie Antoinette was quoted as saying, "Let them eat cake." No wonder she lost everything from the neck up. And her husband, King Louis XVI, also lost everything from the neck up. And it actually took somebody like Napoleon to come in and stabilize the country before France actually basically found its footing again. And even after Napoleon, there was an attempt to return to the Bourbon monarchs, which resulted in a second revolution. No, not good at all. And then on the top of that, another major revolution had the incoming party of power promised peace, land, bread. That was the promises put forth by Vladimir Lenin, who was who was trying to bring about the communist revolution in Russia, who was for all intents and purposes, the founder of the Soviet Union. At the time, Russia was involved in World War I. People were starving, and none of them, virtually none of the proletariat, as he described it, was landowners. They still ended up not being landowners as part of the false promise of communism or socialism of any kind. And they still ended up short on food. They were still starving. Just, they got the crap beat out of them a little bit more. But peace, land, bread. That was the three promises of the Communist Revolution. And they did deliver on at least one of those. They did get peace from Germany, albeit that did not end well for Russia. No kidding. They were losing a World War to Russia, and when they tried to go for peace, the Germans offered them harsh terms. So, yeah, it was not a good day to be a Russian when that happened. It seems like something that's going on now. But anyhow, two of the biggest revolutions in the last 3 centuries started because people were having trouble feeding themselves. Now it's like, and yet I see a shortage happening of one of the things that is going to make it the most difficult for us to feed ourselves once again. And so, that being said, if you don't know how to hunt, learn. If you don't know how to fish, learn. If you don't know how to farm, learn. If you don't know how to gather firewood and use it, learn. And you don't necessarily need all this equipment for yourself. You can borrow some of it from a friend who knows how. A chainsaw and a truck and a national forest permit, and you're good to go for the firewood. If you have a backyard, being able to grow a few tomatoes might save your hide. Being able to grow a few potatoes might save your hide. Being able to fish, you'll be able to feed yourself. Being able to hunt. I've actually seen a deer feed a family of 4 for a year if it's the right sized deer. Especially if you have a few other things to mix it up with. So, bag your limit of deer, buck and doe. And then learn how to properly harvest the deer once you've done. So, these are things that, while I've never really been, for the exception of the farming, I've never been fond of that and the woodsman stuff. I've never been fond of hunting or fishing as far as that goes because I don't like to do the butchering part myself. I just don't see where that part's very much fun at all. And yeah, it's like, even so, even if I have to do it, I would take a very Native American approach, use every piece of the deer that I can possibly use, or every bit of the fish that I can possibly use. Yeah, so, yeah, towards that end, if the neuropathy wasn't there, I'd be like, okay, I'm good to go. But I suggest that you guys actually look into how to do some of this yourself. So, that being said, I've been Lovell. You guys have been awesome. And I hope you're having a good day.